Hi, it's Steve Hargadon, and this is the final day of the 5th Annual Global Education Conference. We can see the finish line. So exciting. Rana Dajani is here. Rana, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Hello to everyone.
So glad to have you here. Thanks to our sponsors and supporters this year. A huge shout out to IRON USA and the Global Campaign for Education, and these other fine organizations who make this conference freely available through their support. We do appreciate them. For those of you who are participating live, you can now indicate your location. Look to the left of the map. You're looking for the star icon. Click on it twice and then click on the map. Rana, you're in Jordan now?
Yes, so should I click it?
Well, you don't necessarily have to, but it's nice to be immediately international.
There we go.
Looks like we have someone in Western Europe representing Florida, Phoenix.
You click on the star and then you click on your country?
Yeah, you have to click on the star twice, but the first time you click, it opens up another set of icons, and you click again, and then you can click on the map. Don't worry.
Yeah, it's not working with me.
Your task is much more important than clicking on the star. Oh, we got France. Sorry, what is this representing? Representing New Jersey. How funny. Wherever you're coming in from, we sure are glad you're with us. We're going to move forward here to give Rana as much time as possible. Just keep those notes going in the chat. So Rana Dajani is a PhD in molecular cell biology from the University of Iowa, USA. She's a Fulbright alumna twice, an associate professor and former director of the Center of Studies at the Hashemite University, Jordan, former Yale visiting professor at the Yale Stem Cell Center. Her research focuses on genome-wide association studies concerning diabetes and cancer in ethnic populations in Jordan. Her focus on diabetes is because the rise in type 2 diabetes in Jordan has surpassed other developing countries and is one of the health priorities. She has written in Science and Nature about science and women in the Arab world. She is on the UN Women Jordan Advisory Council. She has established a network for women mentors and mentees in the Arab world, and she's been named one of the 20 most influential women scientists in the Islamic world 2014 by the UK-based Muslim Science magazine. Rana, welcome.
Thank you.
We'll turn the time over to you.
All right. Well, assalamu alaikum, peace upon everybody. That's how we greet people in our part of the world. I'm so glad to be here and to share my experience and what we've done in Jordan, and we hope that the love of reading and education spreads all throughout the world. I'm going to start my talk as a storyteller. I'm very famous for telling stories, and so I'm going to tell you a story. The story of We Love Reading and how it started. And as a scientist, I have to refer to science all the time. So I'm going to talk about the chaos theory, which states that if a butterfly flutters its wings in China, eventually you may have a hurricane in the Atlantic. And so we're going to embark on a journey together to see the effect of reading, how it can make a huge effect, like the butterfly effect, where a little caterpillar transforms to a butterfly, and the butterfly flutters its wings and makes a hurricane all over the world. And this all because of reading. Why reading? Why is reading so important? Because when a child reads and grows up to be an adult who reads, that's how the imagination opens up for the child. He or she starts thinking and imagining things that he or she doesn't have in their own immediate environment. And so they become more creative and more innovative. Also, when you read about other cultures and other people, in other countries, the countries that you cannot travel to, or things in the past, or maybe in the future. This also opens your brain to understand and respect other cultures, even if you don't know them. And actually, the more you know about other cultures, the more information and knowledge and expertise you gain. And I'm just going to mention here, Jared Diamond, in his book Guns, Germs, and Steel, had mentioned that he believes one of the reasons that the Aztecs were, the Incas, in Peru, were conquered by the Spaniards is because the Incas didn't have a written language. And so they only depended on an oral tradition. And, you know, there's so much that you can memorize by heart, and there's so many people who can acquire that knowledge. While the Spaniards came from a culture where there was a written word, and there was education, and so they knew a lot about the tricks of war because they had read all these books and inherited them. So they were able, with 300 soldiers, some horses, some gunpowder, to conquer a whole nation, millions of individuals because of reading. So reading is very, very important. Also, when a child reads, he or she learns more and more vocabulary, and this helps him or her express themselves. So, for example, if you have a child who has a little baby brother born, or a little baby sister, and of course he feels jealous of his new sibling, and then so she or he starts crying, they feel frustrated, but they don't have a word to describe it. And usually what will happen is that the mother will also be frustrated because she doesn't understand what's going on with her child. And everybody ends up in a bad situation. Now, however, if the mother was reading to her child stories about siblings and had used a word to describe the feelings of the older child, such as jealousy, then when the child feels that feeling, he can go to his mother and tell her, "I feel jealous," using the same words and vocabulary he learned from the story. And the mother, instead of yelling at her child, she would hug him and kiss him and give him affection and attention because she understands what's going on. Other than that, when the child reads more, you have more vocabulary to express yourself, and so you become less violent. Similarly, when you read about other cultures and other people, you learn to understand that there are various perspectives, different from the perspective you have. This is a very famous optical illusion where you could look and see either an old woman or a young woman. And you know, different people see different perspectives. And so when you read, you may read about somebody else, you may disagree with that person, but at least you can start to understand where that person is coming from and be able to have a conversation without disagreeing or creating a misunderstanding that eventually may become violent. Also, reading helps us become more empathetic, and it improves the theory of mind. There were 3 scientists who did some research. They took adults, ages 18 to 85, and gave them to read for 3 minutes either non-fiction or pulp fiction or literary fiction, such as Dickens or Tolstoy, or not to read at all. And they measured their empathy before and after those 3 minutes. And guess what? They found that whether you didn't read or you read nonfiction, or you read pulp fiction, your empathy didn't change. But if you read literary fiction, your empathy increased just for reading for 3 minutes, because you start to understand where that person is coming from. You live in his or her shoes. You understand the depth of the personality. So reading is also helpful for that. Actually, the New York Times ran an article about this research and recommended that before you go for an interview or on a date, you should read 3 minutes of Tolstoy. And also, the more you read, the more you can understand what the other person is thinking about, and you become more empathetic, which is something we really need today to make more peace, to build bridges of understanding, whether inside our homes and families, or in our communities, or between nations and countries. So reading is very, very important. And the question here is, why don't we read? Well, in Jordan and in the Arab world, the statistics that came out of the Arab Foundation is that the number of minutes read per year is 6 minutes a year on average. And when we say 6 minutes of reading per year, we're not talking about reading for education. Reading for education, everybody goes to school in Jordan and the Middle East, and everybody gets a degree. When we say reading, we mean reading for pleasure. You know, that under the covers, can't put the book down. That's the kind of reading that we lack. And that's the kind of reading that's so important to build a change maker for the future. So the question is, so since reading is so important, why don't we read? And as a scientist, I explored that question. And I found out that, you know, it's kind of weird because most of the Middle East is Muslim, and Islam, the first verse that ever came down of the Quran, which is our religious book, says read. In Arabic, iqra. So why don't we read? What happened in the last couple of 100 years that we've lost this habit of reading? So I found out that in order to read for pleasure, you have to love to read. It has to be this passion. And the reason we don't love to read in the Arab world is because our parents don't read to us. And apparently, in order to plant the love of reading, a parent has to read to her child even as early as when the child is in the mother's womb. It's as that early and that important. Because if you read, when the child is very, very young, even when the womb, it plants a connection between the mother and the voice of her reading and the feeling of comfort and serenity, and you feel good. So even when you grow up, you stay reading because it makes you feel good. When you're happy, you want to read. When you're sad, you want to read. So we found out the reason. The reason the children don't read in the Arab world, or the adults, is because nobody read to them when they were young. It's not actually lack of books as many people think. It's like, you know, you give a man a fish or you teach him how to fish. No, you give him, you have to teach them how to fish, and that's the important thing. That's the key. So when we found out that the key, we started thinking, my husband and my children, what can we do? You know, we can't train every parent to read aloud. That's impossible. So we thought, and we don't know anybody in the government, and we don't have a lot of money. So we thought the least we can do is for us to read aloud to the children of our neighborhood, because we felt this deep sense of responsibility that we had the solution, we had the key, and we had to do something about it. So we wanted a place to read aloud. So we looked around us, and in Jordan, in the Arab world, there's a mosque in every neighborhood, and we thought, why don't we read in the mosque? It's a public space, it's open to everybody, it's got a bathroom, it's got a carpet. Why don't we read aloud there? So my husband talked to the imam, who's in charge of the mosque, and told him that we would like to read aloud to the children on Saturday morning. And that's how we started creating a space where we can read aloud and where children can enjoy reading and become readers and love to read. And that became the We Love Reading model, where we started. 25 children showed up the first time we started. And our age group was 4 to 12, boys and girls. And I had chosen books that were from the everyday life of the children, so that they could see themselves in the books. And they had to be in their native tongue, because when you read for pleasure, it has to be in your native tongue, not another language, otherwise it becomes homework. And of course, the first time the children came because their parents thought this was another educational program, and so they forced them to come. But after attending the read aloud session, where, as you can see in this slide, I wear a funny hat, I have my puppets, and I dress up, the kids loved it, they laughed, they cried, they enjoyed it. And then what we do is we give the books out to the children, they look at them, and then they line up so that they can take the books home and look at the books in their homes by themselves and start asking their parents to read aloud to them. Or they start, you know, trying to understand or guess what the words are, or they start reading to their younger siblings. So that way we create an environment, a space, not just in the mosque, but in the homes of the children, in the neighborhood, that is encouraging to reading, raising awareness to the importance of reading, planting the love of reading, not just in the child, but in every member of the family. And so these children, of course, the week after, were waking up 7 o'clock in the morning, dragging their parents that they wanted to go to attend the read aloud. And these children became readers. They love to read. They recommend books to each other. They know the names of the authors. They became readers, literally. And also the parents reported that they even became better at school. They started getting better report cards. They were more confident. So the spillover effect of enjoying to read was affecting even their education and other things. Also what happened is that we started using the read aloud sessions to actually instill good behaviors in the children and change their behavior towards certain topics. For example, we developed 12 books about the environment, energy conservation, water conservation, and anti-littering. And we read these stories aloud out loud to the children. And we measured before reading and after reading the behavior of these children towards these environmental issues. And we were able to show an 80% increase in positive behavior towards energy conservation, water conservation, and anti-littering just by reading aloud for 2 months these stories to the children. And now we're actually doing that for empathy, measuring the empathy of children before and after reading aloud in collaboration with the University of Chicago. And so we're telling people, you know, you don't need TV ads or billboards to spread awareness messages. All you need is reading aloud stories that instill those values in the child, because the child takes the story home, and then they start reading aloud to the other. They tell their parents about, you know, changing their behavior, and they become the administrators and disseminators of that good behavior. We've also been able to open We Love Reading libraries in refugee camps, in the Syrian refugee camp in Jordan. And in the Syrian refugee camp in Jordan, the effect on the children has been absolutely amazing. I mean, these children not just became readers, they started going to the schools that they hated only for the sake to learn to read so that they could enjoy those stories. They were copying every book into a notebook, the text, the illustrations, so that they would have their own copy. They were also reading aloud to other children in the refugee camp. Some children from sector would come from very far away sectors just to attend the read aloud. And of course, who helped us was Lit World, actually funded us to be able to create We Love Reading libraries in the Syrian refugee camp Dajani over the past 9 months. So we're very proud and happy for their funding for us in order to do that. Now, of course, the We Love Reading model is it's not only about the children, it's also about the adults who are actually reading aloud. So what we did is we started a training course and a training manual to train adults to read aloud, to start a We Love Reading library in their own neighborhoods. So our training consists of training them how to read aloud and how to start the library in their neighborhood. And as I said, we call this a living library because it's not the physical space, it's actually the read aloud experience. And these women became leaders in their community. They became change makers. They were empowered because, first of all, by reading aloud, you learn to be better at public speak. You learn how to make eye contact. Some of the women we've trained have went on to get better jobs, have started their own business, their own entrepreneur project. And so they become leaders and role models for other women in their community. And I'm saying women because most of the people we train are women, although we have also wonderful young men who have made a huge difference in their communities and in the Za'atari camp on the children and on their communities. One of the really touching stories is the story of a grandmother who trained with us. Her name is Nabila. You can see her here in the picture. She didn't finish high school. She had cancer, and she wasn't feeling that good. And her husband brought her to one of our We Love Reading training sessions. She started training. She went back to her neighborhood, started the We Love Reading library. She fell in love with reading. She became a role model for all the women in her neighborhood. She created her own library in her own house. The parents would beg her to read more than once a week. She became, her neighborhood became the cleanest neighborhood because she was one of the part of the project that was reading the anti-littering and environmental books. And she was actually given an award by the mayor of our capital of Amman because it was reported to him that there was a particularly clean neighborhood, very unusual compared to others. And it turned out it was hers because she was just reading books to these children. Nabila is an amazing woman who has done amazing things as a result of the We Love Reading program. And actually, UNESCO actually adopted our training for women as a lifelong learning in their literacy database. And you can find that online if you visit our website. So what has happened is that We Love Reading has not just affected the children, the adults, and even the parents in the home. So the whole community now has changed, metamorphosed into butterflies, each one becoming a change maker to make a difference in their community. And I'm going to say an example of this is that when we first went to train in a city in the southern part of Jordan, the women there started asking us or demanding from us to build a library for them. And we told them, no, this has to be your work, your library. And all we did was train them how to read aloud and how to start their library. 6 months later, these same women called us, invited us down to the south, to their city, and they were reading in the mosque, and the children had reached 45 children per session, so there was not enough space. So they talked to the local community, and they got a private company who built a whole room extension to the mosque to be a library. The women themselves bought the paint, they painted and decorated their library, they bought the chairs, they bought the books, and they invited us down to open their library. So they actually became change makers. And this is what we want to do. We want to plant this feeling of responsibility, this feeling of ownership in the community so that they become the change they want to see. They know their problems and they create the solutions to fit their problems. Because ultimately that is the best development, the most sustainable development that can happen. So part of the We Love Reading model and the success of the We Love Reading model is the ownership that the women have for their libraries that is extended to the community. So when we train women to read aloud and start a library, we tell them, this is your library. We don't, the neighborhood doesn't know about We Love Reading or about Rana, about me. They only know about that lady who started it, so she gets all the credit. And so she never stops because her incentive becomes the credit and appreciation she's getting from the community because she's only a volunteer. And that's the secret of the success of We Love Reading. And of course, as a result, We Love Reading has spread all over the world, not just in Jordan. I mean, in Jordan now we have 330 libraries, but it also has spread to Uganda, to Thailand, to Azerbaijan, to Germany, to Mexico. Last week we got a call from Bolivia, from Peru, and from Congo and Ethiopia. And everybody is just listening about We Love Reading, whether it's through our website or through lectures or through the internet and or media. And because it's so simple, all you need is an adult who can read a child's book, not highly educated, in any place that person chooses, and you start it, and it's successful. That's why we were called as a movement, because we piggyback on a network of people who have the same shared values to make a difference in their communities and to help their communities develop and become better. And actually, we got a call from the U.S., which was very surprising, and we thought, why do you want us? We thought that you also read. And they told us, no, of course we read, but there's pockets of poverty or immigrants or underprivileged communities who could benefit from the We Love Reading program, because it's not just about reading, it's about also bringing the community together. People start to know each other when they meet during the Read Aloud. So we had our first Reading Aloud We Love Reading session actually in New Haven, Connecticut in 2013. So we're very proud of that as well. And so it's moving. Every time, last month we were in North Carolina, and there's a number of actually immigrant populations there, and they're starting a We Love Reading in North Carolina as well. So I'm going to share, and of course, as Lucy just mentioned, we won the WISE Award. WISE is the World Innovation Summit in Education. We just won the 2014 WISE Award, and we're very, very proud because that's a label. It's a testimonial to the innovation that we Love Reading, the model exemplifies. And actually, we were mentioned in a book by Charles Leadbeater, who's an expert on innovation education. And in that book, we were chosen, along with another 15 case studies from around the world, as examples of innovation in education. One of them was actually MIT, and one alongside We Love Reading. And actually, the woman I work with in Jordan, when they knew about that, they said, oh, it's not We Love Reading with MIT, it's MIT with We Love Reading. And this is what we want to plant, the pride in what we can do and in our ideas and what we can produce. So I'm going to finalize here by saying that every person is special. Every person can make a difference in their community if we only believe in ourselves. And usually every person is always seeking, to make this world a better place, to do something different. And I think the greatest happiness we can achieve is when we help each other. and support each other. And I think this is what's going on in the We Love Reading program. This is what's going on in this kind of conference where people are gathering together to make a difference in this world, because we all care about the children all over the world. We care about humanity. And the inspiration behind all this is a saying by Prophet Muhammad, which says, every one of you is a protector and a guardian. And that's how we felt that we had to do something. And as Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. And of course, nothing should ever stop anybody from doing anything good, because nothing's impossible. This is an ad by Adidas that impossible is not a fact, it's an opinion. It's not a declaration, it's a dare. Impossible is actually nothing. And always the road of 100 miles starts with the first step. And I love to end with Dr. Seuss's book, Oh, the Places You'll Go. And in the last page it says, and will you succeed? Yes, you will indeed, 98 and 3/4% guaranteed. Kid, you'll move mountains. And We Love Reading story is actually a testimonial to that. And so if each one of us is like a drop of water, all of us together will make an ocean that will make a difference in this world to make it better for our generation of children to come. And so this comes first full circle with the chaos theory, which is We Love Reading. It was a butterfly that fluttered its wings in a little neighborhood in Amman, Jordan, and now it's become a hurricane, a movement that's moving across the world to plant the love of reading in every child, because it's a crime for a child not to be able to feel that joy, that thrill, that exhilaration from reading a story, so that he or she can become the hero and make a difference in their communities, in their nations, to make them better and to build bridges of peace between all communities. So the question now is, what can you do? And we have a saying, verse in the Quran, nobody changes you, you have to change yourself. So thank you very much. This is our website for those who would like to visit it, and we have a Facebook as well that you can go to, and my email is at the end. And there's a short video, maybe if I post the link, Steve can put it up that you can see a cartoon of it. I'll put it in the chat if that's possible. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rana. It is an honor to have you here, and I know everybody in the chat is loving what you have to say. If you want to put the YouTube link in the chat, I can play it for everybody here, and they can play it on their own too, if it's in YouTube.
Okay.
Otherwise, you know, the web page would work on their own. My question for you, if people have questions, please put them in the chat, or I can give you the microphone. But my question to start out with here is, what's next? What are your plans for the future for We Love Reading?
So our plans now is, well, we have a couple of lines of progress. One of them actually is to keep spreading We Love Reading and promote it so that it can reach every country and cover all the globe. Now we have 20 countries that are implementing it. So putting the word out for that and helping support it. And we also want to develop a kind of like a video tutorial. We only have like, we have printed material that we email to people who start We Love Reading. Now we're trying, with the WISE Award, we want to develop a video kit so people can learn how to start We Love Reading. We also want to spread more into the vulnerable areas, such as the refugee camps. We have the 30 We Love Reading libraries currently in the Za'atari camp in Jordan. We want to spread that because the impact on the vulnerable communities is 100-fold compared to just, you know, normal communities. So we're working on those two as much as we can, and we're working on developing more stories in Arabic in the native tongue. And we're very proud of our stories. Actually, the vice president of Scholastic saw our books and was really amazed, and she wanted to actually buy the copyright, the license for our books.
Oh, that's amazing. That's great. I was going to ask, are there a lot of good stories out there in Arabic? Is it easy to find good quality children's literature, or do you have to create your own most of the time?
So in the past 10 years, a whole generation of children's authors have come along, and they are producing really wonderful children's books, but you can never have enough, of course. We don't have as much as there is in the English language.
That's amazing. It sounds like you've got good plans. Is there any way that, besides you know, following you on Facebook and that sort of thing, are you looking for, can people donate to We Love Reading, that sort of thing, as a fundraiser? Is that possible?
Yes, we have a PayPal button on our website that people can donate, and we have it like if you want to, buy a book, or you want to train a woman, or you want to actually open a library. There's different categories, and you can press on that, choose your category, and donate. And we would really appreciate that.
Yeah, I think this would be like a really great, I could see students getting involved in the United States, in a fundraising project. I think it would, it would mean a lot to kids. I think they would identify with this, and how the importance of reading and how kids need to have books and that sort of thing. So I think this, I could see school groups, kids raising money and doing something along those lines to benefit other kids. Lucy in New York asked a question about the languages that you provide these services in. Is it just Arabic, or are you working in other languages? Is this model working in other languages?
The training material is in Arabic and in English. And the stories we have are only in Arabic. But usually what happens, every country, like in English, there's plenty of books in English, children's books. In other countries, people just try to find what stories they have in their country. And I'll give you 2 examples. So in Uganda, when they started it, it was a reporter who heard about We Love Reading, went back to his village, trained his sister. She started reading. Then the local radio person in charge was a writer, actually, a children's books writer. So he found a market for his books. So he started writing even more books, and the thing caught on. In Mexico, actually, it was the indigenous. We met with a group of indigenous Indians who weren't sending their kids to school because they were afraid of losing their identity. They actually wrote down the folklore tales of their tradition and started reading those aloud to their children, and actually started sending their children to school. So there's different ways of creating different stories.
And I think there's storytelling is a great tradition in every culture, it seems. And in order to capture the native stories too, I think that's important. There's a woman that I know in Indonesia who's Australian but married to an Indonesian, and she's worked with her students and on her own to document stories there. And they've actually published them in, I want to say they're published in, they've used iBooks Author, which is on the Mac, to publish these interactive books digitally. And they're trying to capture the stories there. So I think that's really important. Be your own storyteller if there's not something that's already created, I guess.
Absolutely.
Here's another question from Lucy in New York. Do you have experts in languages in these countries? So Lucy Mingla in New York, what do you mean by that? Do you have experts in other languages in these countries? You can, Lucy, if you want to grab the mic, I'll give you the mic privilege.
Hello? Oh.
Yeah, go ahead, Lucy. I don't think she's checking. I wanted her to explain her question a little bit more. She said, since I heard that there are other people that do it in other places, are there experts in these languages in these countries? So, yes.
So it's actually, it's not experts. It's just somebody who hears about it, whether it's a mother, a housewife, or a principal as in Ethiopia, or somebody who cares, and they just start reading aloud to the children in their neighborhood. And then it catches on from place to place, village to village, community to community. So it doesn't need an expert in that sense. And then all they do is just keep us in touch and tell us about what they're doing, and we showcase it on our Facebook or our website.
Out of curiosity, what does the training look like? I mean, what are some of the things that you try to get your readers to follow in terms of reading aloud and that sort of thing?
So the training, when we do it in person, like in-house, like in Jordan, it's 2 days. It's a full day on why is reading important, why you should read, how do, it's a very interactive kind of training where the women get involved trying to analyze the benefits of reading and why their community doesn't read and how to get people involved. And then how to read aloud as an art. How to raise your voice, how to make eye contact, how to hold the book, how to turn the pages, how to make it a fun experience, not an educational experience. Many of the people in the Arab world turn everything into an educational experience out of good nature and out of a good intention, and we have to teach them to not to do that. It has to be fun, no questions asked. And the other half is how to approach their community, how to talk to if it's in the mosque, how to talk to the imam. If they don't want it to be in a mosque, it could be in a church, it could be in a community center, it could be a school, how to gather the children, how to fundraise, because it's their project. Remember, we only give the training in like a seed library, like 20 books. Then it's up to the reader to look for ways to keep her library going. But usually you don't need more than 20 books because the child loves to read that story again and again and again. So the second part is about, how to be an entrepreneur, basically. That's why the training has become also about women empowerment and women becoming entrepreneurs, because when they use the Wheel of Reading model, it's like a stepping stone. They discover their inner potential and they then look around and find their own passion for whatever project they want to start as well.
Amazing, and I bet you didn't necessarily anticipate some of those extraneous benefits when you started this. You were really focused on the reading part, and you've seen so many things blossom as a result of it. It's amazing.
Absolutely. And actually, last time I was giving a talk, somebody told me, but you're also teaching democracy in the training, because the women have to, learn democracy. They have to take everybody's opinion in their neighborhood, so they're advocating for democracy at the same time. And I think this is the benefit when you start something from grassroots. People really finding a problem and then looking for the solution. You get so much more benefit than adopting something from outside your culture, your community.
I was in the Middle East a number of years ago for a conference very similar to the WISE conference, and this is an area of the world that I'm not an expert in by any means at all. But what I found was interesting is that in many countries there in the Middle East, the economy can potentially change in maybe 10 years, 40 years, whatever, in terms of oil being depleted. And also people were telling me that 60% of the population around there is under the age of 25 too. And yes, so there's kind of an urgency to provide to bolster education somehow. Is this, am I accurate in what I heard? Are there specific things that impact education in your corner of the world?
All you said is correct. We have a youth bulge, and we consider it not a challenge. We consider it a boon. It's a positive thing. We have all this potential, and yes, education is key to make people, to be able to utilize their knowledge, their experience, and it's going to require a lot of innovation and creativity, because there's not going to be enough jobs. These youth have to create their own jobs. So the more they read, the more empowered they become, the more they think outside the box, the more they can become change makers to create new jobs and to solve the problems of the community, whether it's water shortage, it's energy, conservation or producing new sources of energy, you name it, they will have to come up with it.
Okay, so it's gonna be very interesting to see how you guys grow further. We're really thrilled for you and love your message. And if there's anything we can do as the Global Education Conference or people in this room to support your work, please let us know. Because I think this is how change happens. The grassroots and the authentic kinds of initiatives are really the way to go. So we deeply appreciate your time here. If people have more questions, please put them in the chat, but I don't want to take up too much of Rana's time if we're wrapping up here. Thank you again, Rana. This has been wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you for everybody who's been here. And please, whether it's through the chat or through our email or our website, we'd love to hear from you, suggestions, ideas, volunteering, donations. We want to spread the love of reading to every corner in this world. Thank you very much.